Keep an eye on it. Would you like a mince pie? Are you sure?
It's 7 o'clock, Chair.
Right, okay, it's 7 o'clock. Okay, we will start the meeting. I'm chairing tonight because our regular chair has sent his apologies. Could any members or officers in physical attendance with an electronic device mute it to avoid feedback? Could remote participants keep their camera and microphone off unless they wish to speak, as this can affect the quality of the meeting? This meeting is being live webcast and the recording stays on the council's website. I would like to welcome everyone to this evening's Hybrid Western Area Committee, including anyone attending remotely. The following Swale Borough Council officers are in attendance: Communication and Policy Manager Phil Sutcliffe, Policy and Engagement Officer Janet Dart, and Community Safety Manager Steph Curtis. We are also expecting Rebecca Neal from Brogdale, but I don't believe she's here yet. We don't have any Kent County councillors for the area in attendance. Do we have parish councillors? Could you introduce yourself from Ross going round, please?
John Richardson, Bobbin Parish Council.
Thank you.
Rather, we invoiced Nigel Osmer Breaker.
Right.
Steve Thomas, Highway Parish Council. Lee Burgess, Tunstall Parish Council. Councillor Roger
Right, thank you.
Councillor James Summons, Borough Council.
Thank you very much. Do we have any?
No, that's the house super. He just logs in. So
Right.
He can
But we don't have anyone else online at the moment. Right, okay. If you would like to speak on any item, please raise your hand and I'll invite you to in turn to speak. Likewise, if there's anyone attending remotely, please mute your microphones until you speak and indicate on the IM if you wish to speak. Please be aware of the evacuation procedures to follow in the event of an emergency. There is no scheduled test of the fire alarm during this meeting. If the alarm does sound, please leave the building quickly without collecting any of your possessions, using the doors signed as fire escapes, and assemble outside where directed. Await instructions before re-entering the building. Should anyone require assistance in evacuating the building, please make the Swale Borough Councillors officers aware of any special needs so that suitable arrangements may be made in the event of an emergency. Anyone? No. Oh, right, Rebecca, you're here. Oh, no, that's lovely. So we have Rebecca O'Neill from Brogdale CIC. Thank you. Welcome. If you want a mince pie, help yourself. Do we have any apologies, Janet?
We have apologies from Councillor Paul Stephen, Councillor Sarah Stephen, Councillor Mike Baldock, Councillor Richard Palmer may be arriving later, but I have a few apologies from parish councils from Backchild and Upchurch, and also from the Kent County Councillor Rich Lee.
Thank you. Are there any declarations of interest? No? Do members agree the minutes of the meeting held on the 31st of August 2023, minute numbers 240 to 250 as a correct record? Okay, so thank you. You have read them, haven't you? Evening, Monique. It's been a long day. Right, okay. So anyone who doesn't know, this is Monique, Bonnie, and Swell Borough Councillor?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Any other capacity tonight? No? Right,
Well,
okay.
I am a rubbish and parish.
Right, as well, right. Right, so where are we? Yes. Is there anyone in the room would like to say anything about the youth provision in villages before Rebecca starts speaking?
Something to say, wait for Rebecca.
Right, okay, so is that all right? Rebecca?
My name is Rebecca O'Neill. I run Bromdale CIC and that operates 5 community. And we are commissioned at present by Kent County Council to deliver the youth provision in the Swale area. So we get £103,000 a year to deliver that, and that goes across Southern Housing, Vibe and Sheppey Matters. For that, we work with nearly 2,000 young people in the Swale district. We deliver in Faversham, we have a club for those with disabilities, a club for those who are 8 to 12, a club for those who are 13 upwards. In those clubs, we get about 20 young people come to those with disability. We get about 30 to 40 young people come for those that are 8 to 12. And for those who are 13 plus, we have about 90 that come to that. In the Faversham area as well, we work in the QE school. We run mentoring programs, so that's the older children looking after the younger children to help them transition from primary to secondary school. And we run emotional health and wellbeing. If you imagine that it's mirrored on the Isle of Sheppey, but there's a bit more provision there because the need's greater. So we work out of Rushenden, we work out of Thistle Hill doing detached work. We work out of Sheerness County Youth Club, where we run 2 activities there, one for the younger age group, one for the older age group, and Sheppey Matters also run 2 out of the Healthy Living Centre. Then in the Sittingbourne area, we work in the skate park, we also work in Newington, and we run a detached van that goes around the community, and that goes to the villages as well. So through that work, as I say, we work with around 2,000 young people. In the schools work, we also do that in the Sittingbourne schools and the primary schools as well. So we are working with quite a considerable amount of young people. That funding stops as of March 31st next year. So that will be leaving really quite a big gap. I'm sure you don't need me to tell you what youth work is and what it actually deters young people from getting involved in. But what you might not be aware of is that the age for young people now getting involved in things like county lines has dropped to 10 years old, that they're recruiting young people to. And there is a great need to deter young people from getting involved in antisocial behaviour and into high risk activities. But the greater need is to have that connectivity with young people. So after COVID, there has been a great propensity for young people now to have mental health issues, and we're working with a lot of young people who find it really difficult to engage. So I've been speaking to various organisations, and we've been very lucky. We've been working with Swell Borough Council, and we have won some money through Safer Streets, and that will help us with some of the provision that we're doing, and that will secure the provision for a year for some of the area that we're working in. I've spoken to some parish councillors, met with you last week, and there is an offer of some support that could be put forward for the Newington area, particularly, and the Iwade area, a bit of pockets of funding. We would look to continue the work that we're doing. That's what we want to do. We're putting in bids. So we put in a bid for the million hours funding to the lottery, see if we can get money. We'll write a bid to Children in Need, but you never know because it is a lottery. You don't know what money you're going to get. We are the district that has the highest teenage pregnancy, the highest number of NEETs, the highest number of disability, the highest number of generational disability. Unfortunately, we are high for all the wrong reasons. And, we make a difference in that, in combating that. And I'm very concerned for the safety and the well-being of young people if that youth provision is taken away. So I have 2 thoughts to bring to you really as something that might be something that you might be interested in helping with or looking at. One of those thoughts is that we work with a lot of schools. And if I just reel off some of the ones, Sittingbourne School, Abbey School, QE, Rose Street, Newington, St Mary's, Queenborough, Milton, Davington, Minton, Sheldwich, Regis Manor, Bisonwood, Lower Halsted, Oxford, just to name some, well, to stop talking about them all, but you know, to name some of the ones we work with. If there was the ability for you as councillors and Swale Borough Council to support us in writing to the schools, to ask them if they would put some money forward on a year-on-year basis to support the work that we do. After all, it's their young people in the schools as well. And we work in the schools. We do the transition work from year 6 to year 7 to support them. We do the mentoring work with them. We do emotional health and wellbeing. We do work to support the LGBTQIA plus community as well. So we do a lot of work in the communities, in the schools. It could be possible for some of that funding to be replaced very easily. And I'm talking about if we only worked with 15 of the primary schools and they each gave £1,875, so I'm going to be rather precise, and we worked with 5 of the secondary schools and they gave about £3,500 a year. If it's per pupil that they have, it's very, very minimal. We could actually recoup out of that nearly all the money that we'd be losing for the clubs that we've lost. So that's one option. That's about £47,000, that we would actually recoup from working with those schools. So that's one proposal, going to the schools and being supported by you to see if they would support us by giving a nominal amount on a year-on-year basis. It could be that we could reduce that amount and match fund it with bids, match fund it with some funding that came from the Borough Council. It could be that we start charging, and it could be a little bit of match funding where there's some of the provision is charged for as well. But to do that, you still have to pay for the venue. So it could be, another option could be that you're aware of venues that we could hire on a cheaper rate, or that could be given on a free basis. And there could be some money that could come from some of the parishes to support us as well. The clubs that are particularly at risk, that we have no way of funding as of next year, are the Newington Club, the rural detached work, the Tenham outreach work that we do, the Faversham clubs that are for the 8 to 12-year-olds and the Friday night one, and all of the schools work that we do. If we were only looking to just do the clubs and youth work, no management, no training time, just pure, this is what it costs to deliver, we would be looking at £30,000 to recoup on a year-on-year basis. So we are looking to see what we could do, and if there's any support from the Borough Council to support us with this. I will say that I am also the head teacher of Craftworks College, which is a post-16 specialist college. And I was at Kent University on Tuesday at the head teachers conference there. And they were talking about the national picture and a provision that's being taken away for young people that have to do under level 2 qualification. So that what's called the bottom third for all young people in school, and the need for that bottom third to be catered for. And that's not being catered for, the government taking those qualifications away. And they said at that conference, there's a greater need, therefore, for the community to support those young people because of the risk that they have. And this is not the right time for those youth provisions to be being taken away. And that was just a head teachers conference. So I suppose I'm coming to you to say, is there anything that you can do to support in this area? Have you got any thoughts and ideas of ways you think you could help? Would you be able to look at potentially some funding? Would you be able to look at potentially supporting us to go to the schools to see if they had some funding as an idea? A lot of information, sorry. I can show you a spreadsheet. Very colourful, I can say.
If you could send it to me and then I can circulate it.
James, you said you had a question?
Well, mine was just a comment on the report that we've got, and just I'm pleased to see. I think the work that was done across the area with the meets, especially, was really good. I mean, it's good to see that the engagement was good from the meets. I mean, originally, this was actually an item that was put forward by residents. So the fact that residents put forward that suggestion that youth provision was something that to be looked at by this committee. And it's that we've seen this, that they did engage and it was good, shows that funding is important to try and get that going again in the future, to make it continue. So anything we can do with funding, I would definitely support. The problem is, obviously at the moment, we know there isn't much funding about, especially with for us as a council, it's difficult that we haven't got the funds that we had in previous years for this thing. And our members' grants have been cut as well, so we haven't got that money to go around. But if we can go out to places and get support from us, I'd be all for it. With the schools, have you approached the schools at all at the moment?
I haven't done yet, but it is something that I want to do. But I think it's better if you go with the support of a weighty body behind you, as it were. I used to come in here and talk before I. No, can't do that. No, I thought it would be a good idea. I mean, when we did our petition to the parents who were involved in the youth work, we had over 700 people to us and say we are writing into Kent County Council. We've answered their petition to look at this. When we looked at it, we had young people who put forward videos and said, you know, please listen, please hear our voice. It's just very disappointing, isn't it? I do understand KCC and £58 million to recoup, but it's short term. In 2 years' time, at the moment, the National Youth Organisation is saying that government feel that they want to make it statutory for provision for 13 to 17-year-olds. If they take it away next March, and then in 18 months later, they're actually going to say it's a statutory requirement to provide it. All the relationships that we've just disappearing. You can't parachute people into the Isle of Sheppey and say, come on now, just go and start working with them, because they say, go away. They don't want to. So I do know it's something that residents are very keen to see continue, and the young people have voiced it as well.
Monique?
Yeah, so my ward is Robertson, Bapchild, Milstead, Brigger and Tunstall, or Tunstall Rural. I don't actually remember seeing any kind of advert, and I'm surprised you didn't get any uptake, because unless there's probably someone around, if it's not on a Facebook page or something with other people saying it's on, it won't happen, because they'll be all tucked away in their houses. They don't tend to hang around the streets. On the off chance that something might turn up, because it's rare and random, shall I say, in our neck of the woods. I'm the school governor at Robinson, so I should declare that. I think the school budgets certainly are really tight at the moment, not least because we just had a fire, and that's added to our woes. But I think it's going to be a stretch, especially for some of the small schools, because the budgets are extremely tight. You might get more traction at councils, but they'd probably want to see something in their area. So I'd say, you know, there might be some wriggle room, but bearing in mind, you know, our precept's only 10, 11,000, so we haven't got a huge budget, and we've got a huge village green in which to maintain and various other things going on. So there might be, you know, there might be a few hundred quid you could round up, but across a number of parish councils, that's probably quite a lot, but some provision. And that's the problem, because we now have no bus service whatsoever. Bapchild had 5 buses running, we're now down to 1, and it's 1 an hour. So you might be able to go out, you can't come home, you know, and it's not just youth provision, it's how you get there for us in the rural villages, and I think that's a really tricky thing. So if it doesn't come to us, there's probably not much hope of these kids getting to access any of it.
Yeah, no, we're aware of that. It's very tough in the villages.
Yeah.
And it's probably better for bigger areas like Wade or
Yeah.
Newington, and the central places to look at it. Yeah, it is a worry. If you think we've got 90 young people who come on Friday night at Faversham Rec, and the police are going to end up picking that up, it's going to cost somewhere else instead, isn't it? So if it's not picked up somewhere else, it's going to be a cost.
Ross?
Hi, I represent Robin Parish Council, and that comes as part of the lead as well. Apologies, I'm not familiar with your organisation or that you did something earlier on in the year successful. Are you doing registered charities? You've got various charities.
Okay, we have three different sections to this business.
Right.
So the college is a charity, then the Brogdale CIC is a community interest company, and then Vibe Limited was applying for charity status, and then we've got working on, we'll just pause for a minute while we're busy doing whether or not KCC is going to fund us. So that at the moment it's a limited company with charitable objects.
So the reason for asking that is from a slightly different perspective, probably a wider perspective, really, to suggest local business support, things like that. You know, there's a lot of people, a lot of small local businesses that would be, I'm sure, interested in assisting a local charitable organisation that has certain budgets for them anyway, as companies. But what I think they'd be keen on is to see if they live in a particular ward or parish, that they would want that money to be invested in their children in their local area, if that could happen at all.
Okay, at this moment in time, I've given a bit of an overview of where we're working. We have targets by KCC to perform, and we are performing at 220%. So we are massively over exceeding the work that we do. A lot of people gather around the skate park area. So it might be that they live in the Merston area, but they come to the skate park, or they live in the Chalkwell area, and they come to the skate park. So we can say that we're going to come and work, I don't know, in the Bobbing area. I'm sure you know, because I live down the road in Iwade, that the young people aren't gathering in Bobbing, they're gathering in Iwade instead, because they come and meet their mates. So I might say I'm going to fund work to happen in Bobbing, but it would be pointless because that's not where the young people are hanging out. They'd be hanging out in Iwade. So it would be, as long as there was an understanding that young people don't necessarily do what you want them to do.
No, I fully agree. And I, as a business myself, I support children's charity myself. And the way that they fund that government and the engagement with businesses really sort of give me some ideas.
Yeah, I'd be really interested to look at businesses. I'd be interested to look at the schools, anything really, because what we're doing with the young people really has an impact.
Rebecca, I'm not sure that you understand what area we cover. So maybe it might be, we are the villages basically of the West. So we don't cover Chalkwell, we don't cover Merston, we don't cover the island, we don't cover Faversham. That's not to say there isn't a need, but we're one of the area committees. I understand initially some months ago, I think Councillor Baldock suggested it went to Calc, the Kent area association. Has that happened? Do you know? Because we are quite a small group compared to the group you probably need to access. Because yeah, I think from what the parish councils have said here, I think it's going to apply to all of them. And I'm on Bobbin Parish Council as well. And certainly I know any money that they would want to give you, if they would want locally. In Bobbin, they use McDonald's, the kids, I tell you that.
They do. Yeah.
But yeah, it's difficult. It's a very tough time for everyone, including yourselves, you know.
It is a tough time, it is. Young people, they're going to be the ones who are going to miss out. And they're going to be the young people who are then going to be disruptive. And they'll then get a reputation of being difficult. And that seems really unfair.
I mean, all I can suggest is maybe the representatives of the parish councils here take it back to your parish council and discuss it there. Because if it hasn't been discussed in Calc, time is getting very short now. You know, you've only got another 4 months. You know, December is a very short month. So if there is anything to happen, and then what, they contact you directly?
I'm happy to go anywhere at any time and speak to anyone, and they can contact us directly, or I can come out, or I can send information, or I can get my youth workers to come out and do something. We're interested in local support, so businesses, yes, schools, yes, and parishes, yes. but also sometimes just people sitting around the table, the expertise that you will have, the contacts that you will have. You might know charities, you might know organisations that we can apply to that have got lots of funding that they're looking to support in a particular area. And that would be really useful as well.
Because I mean, we as a committee have no funding now, 0, and I thought that had to be said. And as councillors, we get £1,000 a year, and at this time of year, I suspect most of us have spent, well, not us spent it, you know, but it's been levied. Yes. James?
Just to go back on something that Councillor Bonnie said, is not knowing about it when it was happening. And that's something I had, the reason why it did happen to me is because as soon as the team were out there, everyone's going, these people have, and I think we had this in the past where these people have been approached in the park and who are they? And I get then sort of messages come through to me, who are these people? And once we sort of, we knew obviously we'd given some funding from this committee, but I wasn't actually told that it was going to be happening or what dates it is. I didn't know, residents didn't know it was happening. And there was the Facebook group that, and once we knew about it, it was then shared and we do it. And I think just something like that would help more if we were known in advance that it would happen, so we could then help get that message out. But I think that with the means and probably other areas, and maybe you say with Ivory, because I feel there's a lot of properties within one place. There's more people living there. We're out with Brockenham, we've got less properties, less children, so they have to come from further in there. So I think that's where it's possibly working better. The social media, more people in there, it just gets out and comes through. But I'm happy to go away and there's people like DS Smith that do funding as well, and I speak to them quite a bit, and they're always thinking of projects, so I'll have a word with them and see if they can do anything in the area as well. And then anything I'll find out and let you know.
Thank you.
Just from an officer perspective, so Rebecca and I are linking quite well anyway, and I know funding decisions have been made. So again, officers will be looking at how we can support Brogdale. Is there any other funding, etc., etc. So yeah, we'll catch up with Rebecca and see if we can find a magic wand.
That'd be very helpful. Thank you.
Lee?
No, I'm just saying from a funding point of view, obviously parish councils can't themselves elect to donate money. You have to be approached. So if you don't ask, you don't get. And most parish councils set on a fairly healthy set of reserves, like what's been going on the last couple of years. And getting council, we've not been caught for a good couple of months, so we can't act on this. But we've always, if someone's asked, you've got some money around, we'll give. If you don't ask, you don't get. We can't. Let's go, oh, there's some good, we'll give them money. You ask, and hopefully we'll get.
Okay, well, you'll happily write letters and we'll ask. I suppose I'm very conscious. I don't want to commit to something that's not realistic as well. There are a lot of parishes. You know, my family comes from the Sittingbourne area. I was brought up some of the time in Sittingbourne and spent a lot of life living around here and going around the different villages. And so I'm aware of where it's got a smaller population and where it's got a bigger population and where it's perhaps a little, shall we say, and the families have cars and have young people who are doing clubs and activities and are more engaged in things, and where it's less affluent, and those young people could do with something to do to occupy themselves, and they are more likely to be the ones that then complain about they're not engaged in something. So we've always tried to target our work where we felt it was going to have the greatest effect. And so we'll apply to parishes, we will write. But I don't want to make false promises. I don't want to make it sound like, yes, we'll come and we'll bring the van out and we'll do Monday night here, Tuesday night there, Wednesday. 4 or 5 young people, where we might go somewhere and we might actually engage with 30, because that's our issue as well. And I'm very conscious of that from a parish point of view.
And I suspect, Rebecca, that most parishes, they take the precept from their residents. They want to give back to their residents. I hear what you're saying, and I know if you presented something, yes, I could do this for this area, you're more likely to get your money. But I hear what you're saying, Yeah, no, I get that, but I'm being honest as well from the other side. You know, there are lots of people that approach parish councils for funding. They have to think that you're particularly relevant.
I get that. And I want to say that I don't want to ask for money, and it wouldn't be right. If there's only 5 or 6 young people in that village and the families are affluent, then there might be a family who can't afford Christmas dinner, and I'd rather not know.
Can I come in on that?
Yeah.
Because I'm quite aware that we've got, although some of the villages are really small, and Millsmith's like probably the smallest out of mine, equally, Backchild is significant, and I can think of those horrors on bikes that were causing mayhem around the high street were actually from that village. And actually that kicking around, and there's probably quite a few. So I think, you know, there are pockets of severe deprivation in some of these rural villages. And they really are quite isolated. And there are kids who are sat there at home with nothing to do because they can't go anywhere. So,
Balance, isn't it?
It is,
And I
it is.
obviously promised something. and-
Yeah.
Right, have we got to the end of any useful discussion? Is there anyone else who wants to speak? Then I guess, Rebecca, thank you very much for coming. Thank you for explaining, and I wish we had more positive things to say to you, but
To do something, you know, that means a great deal, because I think one thing back from Casey's needs to be heard, and they were. So I'm very grateful.
yes.
Have you applied to the Green Refreshers Trust before?
I have before, but not this.
Right, because there is a section of the trust that has to give money because of the old Sittingbourne swimming baths. Part of the trust that merged, do you remember, when Sittingbourne was knocked down? And it was gifted effectively into it. So some of that money has to come back to Sittingbourne, is what I'm saying, and Sittingbourne area. So it's probably worth looking into that.
Thank you.
Mike, you know about that. You're online. You're listening.
I certainly do.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, and best of luck.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Right, I appreciate we have a lot on the agenda tonight. I'd like to welcome Steph Curtis, our Community Safety Manager, who will be introducing the next item on community safety priorities.
Good evening, everyone. Hopefully this will lead on quite nicely from sort of Rebecca's discussion on youth work. And I wanted to do a piece of work with you tonight around community safety priorities, but I was just going to set the scene first, I suppose. So some of you may have heard of Swale Community Safety Partnership. Sorry, Janet is bringing up my slides.
Yeah, I'm bringing up the wrong ones at the moment.
Not that we desperately need them. Yes, Swale Community Safety Partnership is a statutory partnership that brings together a number of public sector agencies to tackle community safety problems. And by that, I mean crime, antisocial behaviour, looking at reoffending, drug and alcohol misuse, and a whole host of other things within that. In terms of those agencies, Swale Borough Council is one, along with Kent County Council, the police, fire and rescue, probation, health agencies, and we also work closely with quite a few other partners, including the big housing associations and the prisons. Each year we create a community safety plan that sets out a number of different priorities and how we are going to tackle them. And as part of that process, we do something called a strategic assessment, which pulls together data around everything from levels of crime in certain wards to sort of public feedback. And as part of that process, we like to do consultation with partners and with the public around what we think those priorities should be. Next slide, please, Janet. It's probably going to be really hard to see this diagram, but I will talk about it. Just in terms of what I think the priorities are for this current year, they are quite high level, but within it there's kind of certain subsections. One of the main ones is around domestic abuse. I could present you with all sorts of figures to accompany all of this, but domestic abuse is probably the highest crime type that Kent Police actually have reported to them. Over the last sort of 10 to 15 years, partners worked together to put in quite a lot of resources around supporting victims of domestic abuse. That includes supporting sort of the voluntary sector agencies and as well as making sure that public sector agencies know how to recognise and respond to domestic abuse, along with actually making sure that the public, potential victims and survivors do know where to go to for support. So as a partnership, a lot of the work that we do now is actually around identifying any gaps in those services still, as well as the promotion of what support is available, and actually ongoing training with partners to make sure that they are aware of what to look for and what to do. The second main priority we have is around crime and serious violence. When the community safety partnerships were set up sort of 15 years ago, the crime element was very much a key focus of what we looked at. We're actually in more recent years, we do look at crime in terms of sort of burglary, vehicle crime, criminal damage, but actually we are also looking more at serious violence. And again, that does link into some of the work that Rebecca's sort of the youth work was trying to tackle. So again, as a partnership, it's about identifying, you know, what are localised crime trends and how can we collectively tackle them. And another focus sort of within the last couple of years has been specifically about violence against women and girls, whether that's in public places or the domestic abuse element of it. Another priority for the partnership is around antisocial behaviour. That's as part of that is supporting kind of the higher risk victims, as well as making sure that neighbourhood based problems are tackled. And then another key element, another key priority of what the partnership has also started to do in more recent years is actually around supporting vulnerable people. We're aware as sort of partner agencies, councils, with lots of vulnerable people in the community, and again, not always knowing how to engage to get the support they need, or actually their needs do prevent them from engaging in traditional ways. Within that, that might be victims who might potentially be sort of trafficked or victims of modern slavery, and other quite hidden crimes and issues. So a lot of the work we do around that priority is about making sure that partners and the public know what these sort of hidden concerns are and how to access support. And kind of cross-cutting all of that is around making sure that there's measures in place to tackle things like hate crime, and that there is just communication between partners and relevant information sharing. So they're our main priorities at this point in time, but part of what we're sort of doing over the next sort of month or two is around consulting with people. Actually, are those the right things? Are we missing anything? Are we missing any key themes within those priorities? Next slide, please, Janet.
Mike's not a priority.
So over the next month, I'm attending, well, me and my team are attending each of these area committees to have these conversations with you about what you think maybe the partnership should be looking at. We'll also be having similar discussions with the communities committee, with partners, going out and about with the public. So what I wanted to spend a little bit of time doing tonight is to just have those conversations with you. I think we probably have got enough people to maybe do this in breakout groups if we're happy to do that. But I just wanted to get you to discuss what current community safety issues are being experienced in your particular communities. And then sort of within your groups, you can decide actually what maybe your top 3 themes would be that you feel the partnership should be tackling, and then can kind of come back together and feed that through. If any of you have actually got quite specific issues that you feel maybe are going on in your communities that maybe aren't being tackled as you feel they should be, then I'm quite happy to have those conversations, or sort of drop me a line and we can sort of do that offline. What I wanted to try and get today, I suppose, was for the areas covered by this committee, you know, what do we think those higher level priorities are? So we're happy to maybe go to one side of the table as a group and this side of the table as a group, we're happy to do it in groups, and then sort of said 10 minutes per question and then feedback, but then just let me know when it's done, probably more than anything, if there could be a spokesperson to feedback.
I'm sure they'll cover everything.
Even it out by going.
We did. I should be ready to make any rules for that.
That's a good idea, actually. Otherwise, I'll be coughing.
Be good.
Very good.
But I mean, I was.
I haven't been where the chancellor is the thing. I mean, obviously, on London, I think that's it. Yeah, I don't have to this the set.
At least when I put the other meetings, if you haven't got a huge turnout, it can drastically reduce the times of running.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
That's in my view too.
Do you want me to ask them if all almost ready?
Yeah, getting to.
I said to them to give me a wave. And then-
Oh, right, fine, it's already in hand, fine.
Yeah.
No, I know, Janet's wonderful.
I don't know what today.
Yeah, he can do that.
Should be.
Yeah. Find out, switch on and chatting.
Yeah.
I'll give it a go, switch.
You can't expect
New plan is now, right?
it's in your house.
Well, I'll go home, it's.
I've been trying not to.
Don't, it's left for me to take home, I've got enough in my bags as it is.
So I was really much I liked mince pies, and every year I think, no, I'm gonna eat one, I'm gonna like it, and I eat it.
Oh, the best thing on the top.
It's a while since I've tried one, and I've even tried making it, it's
Oh, I've got
Are
too
we
messy.
supposed to be able to hear you talking about mince pies?
Yes, yeah.
Thought you were having your own chat over there, Mike, discussing and social behaviour in your area.
Contemplating it very deeply.
Just sent you a message, Mike.
Okay, I shall try and find it.
Let's go wander down a little bit, like, over there. That comes in, this one's really good. Yeah, that's it. So I'm up Stalin thinking everything again, I buy them thinking they're Christmas. I haven't tried it again this year, see if I can.
Well, you can't.
I had a homemade one made by someone who was German born, and since then, nothing, it's closed, so I've tried a couple of times, I thought, no, this is not it.
Very partial to those German, like, is it Leverkusen, is that in sight, like those gingerbread stuff biscuits are.
Oh, they're nice.
And stuff, yeah. They're my go-to.
But if English was to ventures down Chestnut Street, 33 miles an hour, it was in no time.
Yeah.
They look like beyond you.
Yeah. Is everyone done? Have you got a priority list of 3? Vivian?
Are you happy with the?
That's your list. That'll do.
Yeah, do you want me to?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, it's not necessarily in particular area, but we're having a discussion about drug using about as those about not dissimilar to the discussion we had earlier. Some issues around modern slavery and there are people in caravans and issues around speeding car parking, quad bikes, scooters. And also issues about neighbours picking on the phone.
So I didn't catch that last one.
Neighbours picking on vulnerable people. General, what comes back to parish council is that the complaints are largely about, not about specifics, but the perception that nobody's really doing this. I'm sure it's common.
Thank you.
I mean, of those issues, was there any specific locations that came to mind in your discussion?
It's all application. Back lanes between Newington and Hoppip and Ironwood on the front. Modern slavery, caravans around there.
Well, it's
everywhere, I think, because it's definitely. Hanging about is everywhere, it's in every.
That's normally that as well.
Yeah. Regular, particularly quad bikes.
Okay. Cool, thank you.
Yeah, everybody fine? Right. So we've got more than three as well. The first one that came on with all of us is jobs on motorbikes,
Okay.
going rounds, all across the areas. Drifters, cars which was specific to highway, and that's unknown, but Virgin Evidence is a police matter that's been dealing with for quite a while, and they move on to different areas as well once they are dealt with. All three areas that we've got are antisocial behaviour, but linked to social housing, especially new developments.
Yeah.
That seem to have new families moved in, and always get problems until the housing providers have to deal with it.
Is there a particular estate that we're thinking, the new one, Backyard, I can't remember what it's called.
Yes, so it's on.
And the other one is Amber Fields development on the mains.
And what you're saying as well is that they move from one development to another.
Yeah, what I've found that they did, especially on Archers Park, is that they all get together with all the friends and then bid on particular properties. And especially with that one, when it was West Kent Housing that came in, they went from one provider, went over to West Kent Housing who didn't know these people. They all then going together, a block of flats, they're all in there and having parties and stuff in going on and all sorts of things. So they know how to obviously work the system and get what they want. But it's a shame that you get nice new properties where people need them, and then you get people coming and trash them.
But we're in charge of the bidding system, aren't we?
We are,
Yes.
but it's whether they've done it via the internal social housing, I can't think what it's called, like homes for type things, potentially. I don't think we as an authority have any involvement with that. But again, that's maybe something we can look at unpicking to see, is there a realistic path?
Didn't work out where they're heading to next.
And then we've got drug dealing.
Which moves.
It moves around and different times as well. Had it in the meeting, the past in the Woodlands, and that's all been dealt with. And then there's the small bits with the gas canisters, but you get it and then you won't get it for a while. There's no real report of it. I think Roger said he sees people hanging about as well with dealing and bits.
So it's under the motorway bridges for us, then Milstead. Yeah.
Youth anti-social behaviour, general, a lot of that in Highway, that's taking place. And then there's vehicle break-ins, which is more occasional, happens at times, generally know, especially the major know exactly who it is. Community safety unit know them as well, quite well. And, as soon as he's back out, he's
Yeah.
breaking in and back in again. So we've got wildlife crime.
So this is a weird one, but we've had lots of dead things dumped in various hedgerows around various villages, including dead skinned things.
Yeah, that's a new one on me.
Yeah,
And then traffic and parking around schools.
that's a really big one. Pretty much every village, but some villages are worse than others. And people seem to lose their ability to use their legs, even within the village, to walk.
I'm sure that's a.
But it's
issue, isn't it?
It's the, the yellow lines, which is Swell Park Enforcement Team versus the movable object of blocking junctions, which is the main issue, and parking on pavements at peak times, and turning in people's driveways and driving over things they shouldn't be driving over.
And I think generalising it a bit with the three priorities, the antisocial behaviour,
Yeah.
then the jobs on bikes and probably traffic around schools, because Aware's got those for the socially concerned.
Okay.
Some very similar issues, but it'll be different issues on the list, but thank you for those, they're all
Thank you.
useful.
Obviously, whether councillor Baldock.
Oh, yeah. Councillor Baldock, did you have anything to add?
No, not on this item, thank you.
Okay, thank you. I just have one more slide, which is more next steps really. So as I've said, we're going to go around each of the area committees, the communities committee, speaking to partners, and it will all get sort of pulled into actually what we're going to do. There's certainly some things that you guys have given us tonight that aren't things that we would necessarily have got otherwise. I think definitely sort of the parking and the traffic management around schools is potentially something that we could definitely pick up. The drug use, selling, the perception of things not being done, because actually I think that communication about what partners are doing is never as strong as we would actually like it to be. And there is a lot of work that partners do. The motorbikes, the drifters around our way, you know, those are things that are being done, but there's certainly some things I think that we'll look through to see, you know, what tangible actions we can do and sort of put into our priority list. We refresh the community safety plan for sort of the end of March each year with an action plan of what we're actually going to take, so we can get maybe through Janet to send that round to sort of all the area committees once we've got that far, and you can see sort of how these conversations of actions. But yeah, that's all I was going to say tonight, unless there's any other comments or questions.
And so one thing, I think what I found, especially the antisocial behaviour, social handling, because it's not being reported.
Yeah.
I'm aware of it. I know some big issues that are going on with that, and not a single resident has come to me to tell me about it. I know about it, and I know through the developer and the sales team there that it's happening because they go to them. And I think there's probably big problems out there like that the community safety unit probably aren't aware to have it as a priority because it's not getting reported. And that it's because they live near there and they don't want to be causing issues with their neighbours and that sort of thing. So I think that's probably something for the unit to be aware of.
Definitely. I think if anybody gets areas where they think issues are happening and it's not being reported to the police, I think there is work that we can do to try and gently nudge through perception surveys and just other sort of more generalised work. So I think if anybody does get any areas where they're concerned that there's things going on that maybe aren't coming through, then just let us know. Maybe again in the minutes, if we can just put in sort of my general CSU email address, because all of the team can pick that up. So if you've got sort of any concerns in your areas, then ping them through and we can either sort of redirect to other partners or sort of see what sort of response we can collate and come back to you on.
I mean, some of it is coming from other areas into rural, so like Eden Village, around social housing there, we know, and that comes into my villages, those issues.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, Steph. Right, item number 7. I don't think we have any members of the public. So we have, like,
That's right.
right. So agenda item 8, enhanced partnership, Swale Local Focus Group. Janet Dark, Policy Engagement Officer, will present the next report about the enhanced partnership Swale Local Focus Group. Janet.
Thank you. So in your agenda packs, there is a report on this, but just to summarise the background, Kent County Council used to manage and run the Quality Bus Partnership for East District, and we used these meetings were used to raise and discuss local issues, but they ceased to exist when the government started developing its national bus strategy. The National Bus Strategy was launched in March 21 and was a blueprint to help improve issues such as infrastructure, bus travel and air quality. Kent County Council received funding from the government for various initiatives, which you'll find detailed in the report. And as part of that funding, each area is required to set up an enhanced partnership, which is a statutory board. High-level groups have been set up, but with no district level representation. So to bridge that gap, KCC have suggested that enhanced partnership local focus groups are set up for each district. They will send along representatives to those meetings, but KCC won't be able to resource them. So this went to the Policy and Resources Committee, and they agreed to set up a Swale local focus group, which will meet twice a year and will be managed by the Director of Regeneration and Neighbourhoods, Emma Wiggins. She'll chair and coordinate the meetings. So Swale Borough Council will be the conduit to bring partners together rather than leading and delivering any work directly. Given the interest locally in bus infrastructure, it's proposed that issues to be raised are requested from each area committee prior to the local focus group meetings, and then following each meeting, there'll be feedback to the area committees. It's anticipated that the Swale local focus groups will hold their first meeting at the end of January, beginning of February, and these will be daytime meetings. The Planning, Transportation Policy and Working Group have nominated Councillor Karen Watson and Councillor Alistair Gould to sit on the Swale local focus group. So each area committee are invited to nominate one representative to sit on the group. So this evening, the first part of this item really is to see if anybody wishes to nominate somebody. Well, this would be one of the borough council members of the area committee, or whether you want to nominate yourselves. So I'll hand back to the chair while we deal with that item.
Is anyone interested? I can't do daytime, so.
I'm not interested, I'm not doing it.
No, too late, right,
I say that,
Councillor Hunt.
Actually, I used to like the quality partnership, I found it quite interesting. But I'm now work full time, the same thing, things about during the daytime. But do we have to have it? Just reading this from the representatives from Western area. I just wonder, does it have to be a borough councillor?
My understanding is
Richard?
it does. But
I don't know. I mean,
No, I mean, are you interested?
no. I couldn't guarantee the daytime meeting, that's the problem. But I don't, I mean, it's a good point, does it have to be?
As long as we've got someone from the Western area that represents the country.
Because everyone's a member, are they not?
I mean, well, no, you've got committee members.
But that-
Yeah.
Bring, it's a focus group. And if someone in the Western area committee, or here in the Western area, whether it's a parish council or borough councillor or a member of the public, was actually keen and knew all about the buses and could have good input, that would be better than having someone who's going there not really too sure. But we might have to seek advice on that.
we're just texting the director of Regeneration Neighbourhoods just to get some advice on that. So we might have an answer anyway.
Because it's not going to vote on anything that's going to tie, it's an input, it's a forum. It's not going to have any impact on Swale Council, and they can't commit Swale Council to anything.
Nigel?
It's just one, I said,
Probably answering the question.
Oh, right.
Just checking. But I would have thought all parishes who've lost bus services, of which quite a few recently, would have an interest in being involved in this.
It's my understanding that we discuss what the issues are and then a representative feeds it back directly to the group.
That's correct, yes. Yeah.
But if it happens that no one is able to attend, maybe what we have to do is feed it back to either Councillor Gould or Councillor Watson, because we can't change our other commitments, can we?
Councillor Baldock.
Right, Councillor Baldock?
I'm quite happy to attend. I think it's important we have somebody from the Western area who knows a bit about it. As the county member, of course, I also have awareness of the impacts on parishes across the area, not just my own ward. So I'm happy to attend.
We have a seconder.
Do we have a seconder?
Yeah.
Sorry,
Sorry.
don't we need a proposer before it's not actually here?
Oh,
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
point of order. Thank you. Right. 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 Okay. So now we need to discuss.
Everybody agree?
Does everyone agree? Yes. Right. Now we need to talk about issues.
For councillor.
Right. Sorry. Yes, you're doing that.
No,
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 me.
Chair.
All right. Okay. Fine. So, Monique, did you?
Yeah. So first thing, say on the report, I think it's worth missing critical words. The report title, it should say Kent County Council Bus Enhanced Partnership, which could be any partnership. So can we just correct that? Because I think otherwise people will lose the thread on finding the report. I totally understand what the gentleman across the road here said about, you know, we've all got an interest in it. I sat on the Quality Bus Partnership and it was useful at that time because we had a direct feedback in with the bus operators. That was really useful. However, the concern I've had about this is that it's a talking shop with no clout and absolutely no funding. And it's back to KCC. But the issues, you're listening, Mike, because there's a lot of them.
I am very much relying on what Janet will note down.
Okay, I'll speak slowly. So, my ward, Robertsham, Milstead, Bredgar, Tunstall, Bapchild have been severely impacted. Robertsham has no bus service. Milstead has no bus service. Bredgar has no bus service. Tunstall has a bit that goes through to the science park, but doesn't go through the centre of the village.
Yeah, it's largely.
And Bapchild had 5 services a day, running regularly, almost every 15 minutes. It's now down to 1 an hour. And because of the works on the M2 and the A249 and everywhere else, on every other single road, it feels like, what happens is those buses all run late without fail, probably about 20 minutes. And as you get towards the end of the day, they decide to cancel one. So you run the risk of probably not getting to where you want to go because it gets cancelled. But then they all stop at 6 o'clock. There is no service in Bapchild on a Sunday, and there is a cut down service on a Saturday. So in terms of it being a useful service, it's not a very useful service. I mean, having absolutely no bus service, and before we had a very basic bus service, and I'll talk about one specifically in Robertsham, which was no good to man or beast because it ran at 10 o'clock in the morning and it came back at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, which is probably all right if you needed to do an hour or two of shopping. But in order to get anywhere else and do anything else, it was pretty useless. We now got the option of a drop-off service, which you have to book in advance and pay for. And so for all the people that are entitled to a free bus pass, they are now in a position where they absolutely have to pay to get out of the village. On this bus service, you can't even call it bus service. It will pick you up and then it will go round God knows where. It will take you about an hour or 2 to get into City Hall. Very soon, it will take about 20 minutes if you're able-bodied. And then you literally are set down for a few hours again, and then you've got to return. So again, that is a fairly useless service. So when they're looking to create new services, could they run them at decent times a day, like 8 o'clock in the morning, 8:30, so kids can get to school, people can get to work, people can get to hospital appointments. That's the most important thing, as well as shopping expeditions, and return at a suitable time of day. I think these services have been set up to fail at every opportunity. And when there was an opportunity under planning to extend the service, I'll shut up in a minute, but we had an opportunity when Kent Science Park was expanded, and KCC were absolutely adamant that all they wanted to do was extend a service that led from Sittingbourne to the Science Park. It didn't have no interest in whatsoever in trying to support the rural bus services, which would have had far greater impact for the rural communities. And through legacy, those were the people that actually worked up at the Science Park. So KCC clearly had in mind they were going to cut these services before they did, because they didn't take that Section 106 opportunity, as far as I'm aware, and they extended a service. Also, when they do new development, what they often do is we'll put in a pilot scheme, and we've had the lovely opportunity of the Arriva Click service, and that went past Rodmersham, but it never stopped. So that was always destined to fail because it didn't have enough passengers. And the reason it didn't have enough passengers is because it wouldn't stop at one of the villages it went past. It also killed the commercial bus service that ran to the Science Park. So when they think through these bus services, they need to think through, is this a subsidised service and they're willing to kill off a commercial service? Or are they trying to create a new commercial service that will be viable? Therefore, it needs to operate at decent times of day where people can get on the bus. Right, that's my piece.
Anyone else?
We have the same issues of it. I mean, Newton, some of the people complain to me and say, if they get into town, there's no bus to bring them out for 4 hours. Some people do use the train station, but it affects people mainly around Hartlip and Upshur. They just find it's awkward because of the timings and if they want to get anywhere, it invariably arrives at the railway station 5 minutes after the train has left and things like that. But there's very similar things. People 6 o'clock after 6 o'clock at night, you can't do anything.
I mean, that's my experience as well. I mean, we were fortunate in the fact that we got the Chatham bus rerouted through Grove Park occasionally, but very similar. The first one to go to town is 5 to 10. The last one coming back is 1 o'clock, I think. And we have a lot of people that are over 90 that have been totally independent until they pulled the plug.
Yeah.
Yet when they're assessing, and this bit I think is important, when they're assessing about which are cost-effective buses, they only give 80p per pass. So instead of bums on seats, if you had a free pass, Ross, they would say, right, we're only getting in 80p for you, and then so you might have a full bus, but it's not bringing in a lot of money. But that's because KCC only credit 80p for anyone with a free pass. And all through summer, we had all these gimmicks. I mean, I did email the cabinet member then. You had a free weekend. Well, you don't have any buses on the Sunday, so that's pointless. You had families, but in my area, it's the elderly, and they can't necessarily get into a cab. And they can't do what they were doing before. And they're going to demand in other services because they won't be able to carry on being independent. And I know it's not in our area, but the other end of the number 9 was exactly the same. And it's probably the same with every bus route. Sorry, Richard.
Not just the elderly. Teenagers who could get into town and perhaps go to the cinema on their own or go bowling with friends, but they just can't do it. So they're forced to hang about.
Yeah.
And that's the problem.
Yes.
In fact, rarely do you get an old person say, oh, it's affecting my mental health. But since the bus services have been cut, a number of them unexpectedly came to me and said, this is affecting my mental health because I cannot get out. I feel abandoned. I can't get out of the village. And I think that's really sad because that is the one thing they felt they got freedom to do was hop on a bus and go shopping. And now they've got to wait for this click service, which is a waste of time.
I think, it's great if you're going on a straight line, but if you have to deviate off to where the doctors are, you can't get there.
Yeah.
Particularly for the elderly. So some of them are saying to me they pay a taxi for them. And that's having an impact on them.
And how often can they afford that? I mean, someone I know on our estate, she used to go to the memorial for her warfarin tests. and you have to have them pretty regularly. There is no bus to the memorial now. So if she can get to town, she then has to get a cab. She's got to be touching 90, you know, whatever coffers she had in the bank, you know, whatever money it's not, you know, but it's something she needs. So what is she going to do? Not go for the test? You know,
I suggest it's even a little bit wider than that. If people wanted to go to the Maritime Hospital,
yeah,
you know, and people are doing that on a daily basis or several times a week basis to visit a ailing loved one or something. And that's going to cost them 50 quid a day in taxes when it should be a bus.
But it might be worth highlighting and sending round. I'm out tomorrow, and if I think I'll try and send it over the weekend. But Swale CVS
yes, you said about that.
have what do you call it, a car service. You have to pay.
Volunteer service.
Yes.
Well, yes, it is a volunteer service, you're quite right. There's a membership fee that you pay, and then you have to pay a certain, and I don't know what the figures are now,
25 quid membership.
and about £5 for it.
And then I don't know, I've never used it, but I know somebody who went to Medway Hospital from from Kemsley actually, to Medway Hospital, and I think it was £23.
Right.
So it's not cheap.
No, right.
But it is door to door service.
It's not.
And they bring them back.
For 2 hours.
All right.
If they're not ready to come back in 2 hours, then you won't go over it.
Just hope it's not a long way for the
Yeah,
doctors to this.
I'm careful what I say here, because luckily in the meetings, we don't have any problems. But I'm sure some residents will go, what are you on about? But I think because where it is as positions, we're lucky to get the bus come through quite regularly, because it's going from the island through around Sitting Bull. So we're quite lucky with that, and we haven't had services stop or anything. And I generally don't get many issues with buses raised with me at all, and probably as well because of the people that live in their cars and they do just jump in the car and go. But there is one particular thing I did have recently, which I must admit was a bit of a strange one, because it was school transport, but there's quite a few children that go to school in Maidstone. And when the bus service stopped,
The Arriva service, yeah.
children then couldn't get to school. And what they have been finding is they're getting the X3,
Mm-hmm.
so the 3
Yep.
was cancelled. They're getting the X3 now. That hasn't been turning up in Sitting Bull.
That's the one in Backchild,
Yeah.
the X3, that's the service I was talking about, yeah.
So that isn't turning up, and what it is impacting on those children not being able to get to school to Maidstone now. I mean, I think how we've got children going to Maidstone to school is madness. They're not being able to go local, but it is a problem that's happening. And when I've just got here, that buses that don't turn up certain times, so I think that X3 is something to look in. If that service is now been stopped, it's something that we need to look.
The X3 starts in Canterbury, so it's a long journey and no doubt lots of roadworks
Yes,
are on the
and
way.
that's what happens towards the end of the day, it's cancelled.
And then that's brilliant. From the people, the residents that came to me were lucky, because again, they were working from home, they jumped in the car and got the children there, but they can't do it. And there'd be people that can't do it, so.
Thank you.
And so picking up from that, like, it's the X3 that goes through Backchild, but there used to be far more frequent services going all the way along the A2 there, and those have all been dropped. So 4 of those have dropped, so it's a significant drop. And the frequency issue, it goes from, I think psychologically, this is the thing, is you're going to go and get a bus. If there's, one bus every 15 minutes, it's not such a big deal if one's late. If you've got one bus an hour, you're starting to think, am I going to get there? And it starts going from the, I'm taking public, to the, can't rely on it, I have to do something else. And I think that's what we've got. And we've got people coming into the train station now who are saying basically they can't get from the train station back home because of the infrequency of the services. So it's across the board of people that are being infected there in particular.
And we still have a shortage of cabs left over from COVID. So if you're at the station and you can't get home, you can't even necessarily get a cab.
I mean, what I find so astonishing is we are quite densely populated around here. And when you go down to Cornwall, you know, my dad's got a place down and my sister lives down there. And they're off frequent bus service. It's run by Cornwall Council, or their bus company. And they are frequent. And I see them go past. They are oodles of them. And we are so densely populated, you know, it's not actually a huge distance from Faversham or from Canterbury or from Maidstone, but to find that we've got so little bus services is quite astonishing.
Go to Chatham bus station and see the amount of buses going out and late at night.
Yeah.
Nothing runs in the evening in Swale. Nothing.
No. So I think evening bus services, well, just having a bus service would be good.
Well, yeah. Let's aim high.
Got that list, Mike?
I hope you can write fast. Thank you. Right. Have we exhausted that? Okay. You will find the matters arising update in the agenda pack. Does anyone have any questions or comments?
May I make a comment about one of the others?
Yeah, of course you can.
Just to remind members about the item on the packs that are being provided by the wait, let me just quickly get the name right. Leaflets at the entrance. The fuel and water home advisor, packs and advice. The delivery has been received. And so if you could still promote that service, I can resend out the PDF to be sent round to parish councils or to any residents who'd be interested. But please take some leaflets when you go if you want to hand them out to people. But obviously that time of year, we're back at that time of year, so it would be useful to promote that service. Thank you.
Thank you.
And yes, I've got one update, a late update on the Bredgar and Hartlett conservation area reviews. So the press notifications to London Gazette and a local newspaper advising of the 21-day notice period for the redesignation and adopted conservation areas for Bredgar and Hartlett are scheduled to be published on the 1st of December. Adoption notification letters to the local residents within the new conservation area boundaries will be sent out or were sent out yesterday. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, agenda item 10, land assets in the Western area. I would like to invite Councillor Baldock to introduce the next item on land assets in the Western area.
Okay, well, you can see that there's lots of maps. The idea is that I thought there's going to be a report indicating what the options are for land transfer, for leasing, but at least with the maps, it means that we can parishes can look to see if there are bits of land within their parish that they would like to take over and take control of. It also is helpful when there's bits of areas that we're not sure if it's Swale, KCC, private. I think Councillor Hunt will know all about that. So it's useful to actually have a definitive map of at least what is Swales. And the purpose for this partly is there's going to be increasingly less voices for villages if we go into a unitary situation. KCC is in a delicate position with its finances. so is Medway Unitary. If either of those fold, the chances are the government will come in, and what they did in Northamptonshire was just split Northamptonshire up into 3 unitaries. In that situation, it's going to be very hard for villages to have their voice. It's going to be very hard for towns to have a voice in a unitary, apart from the really large ones. So this is an opportunity to try and get that land under parish or town control, so that if we do go into a unitary situation, the parishes have got a good hold on what happens and what affects their parish, because what would happen in a unitary is we would find it very hard to maintain a local voice, and you'd have a one size fits all approach, not just across Swale but across possibly half of Kent, and that doesn't really give local variation or local nuances. So that's why I asked for these, and hopefully you'll find them interesting.
Monique?
It's quite difficult to read the maps. I think as you zoom in, you kind of lose a bit of clarity.
Yeah.
There are some bits missing, and one of them, yes. So one of them is in Bapchild, because I did actually speak to the parish council in Bapchild the other night to say, were there any assets? And we talked about what we colloquially call the village green, which is this is in Commonwealth Church Street. There's a big area, green space. Now, it used to be Borough Council, one of their tip sites, and it was very clear, and I can totally understand it, that Parish Council said absolutely no way do we want that because of the liability. But what I should raise to you is A, it's not on the map, and B, it was a tip, it's grassed, it's regularly repaired, i.e. additional works are done to it to level it. And that's probably because of what's being dumped under it. It's not vented. It probably should be. I think that is actually a considerable risk. It was probably, the parish council looked at it in some detail quite a few years ago. I think they felt they got nowhere at the time with the officers, other than to admit that it belonged to Swale. But the fact that they used it as a tip for so many years and then it was landscaped over, I do think that the council needs to look at that site and think about what the possible contamination issues are that should be dealt with and not just ignored. Clearly, anywhere that was formerly a tip should be vented, and it has a whole load of other issues. And I think our maps will need to be updated to make sure certain sites, but in there, of course, is Stones Farm, which is being transferred. It's not yet ours, but will shortly be ours in the next few months. It's a big lump of land, and no, they're not asking for that either.
James?
I had a similar thing with the maps, that the Meads one's wrong as well. We had completely missed off the biggest part, which is the Meads Woodland. There's a piece on there which shows it as Swale, which has now got the school on it. Apparently we own the roads in Quinton. We don't, it's KTC. And as you say, I mean, generally for the Meads, the areas that we've got, I can't see an issue. I don't think there could be any transfer or anything with these ones. They're all open spaces.
Transfer too.
Sorry, yeah. It's not apart from the only bit that the Bobbin Parish Council does cover is the big free area that we've cut down because there's so many problems with knocking down people's fences and things, and that's taken 3 years to sort out.
Behind Anthony.
But I don't think they want to take that on. But yeah, the maps are wrong. if we, as a council, can't get our own assets right, then how are we gonna expect other people to come?
No,
in?
totally agree, because I knew the Woodlands was wrong,
Yeah.
because it's like, and I saw the school, and that was bizarre.
And I had emailed the officer that's done the maps, I've had no response, so.
And these are all set up as ward boundaries, and we're asking parish councils to look at them. It would possibly have been more useful if we could have had parish council boundaries, so we knew exactly what was what.
Can I just point out with the exception of the bit of grass beside the A42 with the sandbank, there isn't anything else we want to look at.
Monique?
Robertson would like to look at the bits that Swell owns, but it's difficult on this map to see what they are. So maybe if we can get the maps reviewing clearly, but also the resolutions so that we can drill down to exactly where those bits are.
Anyone else?
I'm just saying there a better mapping system is online. That you can go on and put in grounds maintenance and you can actually see it. It might be worth maybe emailing that round. Maybe you can then zoom in and find out exactly what is on there. That seems to be more up to date than what this map is that we've been given.
Monique?
The health warning with that is we might maintain it, but we might not necessarily own it, because there's one bit I can think of where I think KCC maintain it, but we own it, and vice versa, so.
I mean, maybe I can suggest that you take it back to your parish councils, because I know it has been raised at time. I mean, there has to be willingness for
Yeah.
parish councils to take stuff on, and if there is a particular bit, but yes, better maps clearly, because that would identify what is available in your parishes. So could you try and get better maps? I mean, yeah, I zoomed in and I couldn't read anything. No, but
And it would be ideal, my parish.
yes. Okay. Is that right? Shall we move on? Item 11, conservation areas review, Article 4. I would like to invite Councillor Baldock to introduce the next item on conservation area reviews, Article 4.
Hello again. Yeah, this is the what we're talking about when there's areas that may not equate to a whole conservation area or just a certain small section. I mean, there are areas across Swale West. I'm thinking of Iwade by the church, where you couldn't get a conservation area review, a conservation area for the area, but you could get an Article 4. So this is really what this was supposed to be about. It also takes away permitted development rights, which is quite handy in some of these places. Do we have an officer here to speak on this?
No, we don't. But just
Right,
the
so-
briefing that's in the pack.
Yeah, I mean, these briefings are not extensive. It's how would a council or a parish council go about trying to see if we could get an Article 4 direction done for an area? How would we know what would be suitable? What is the process? These items are coming forward with no sort of background to them, and haven't got officers who can deliver the information on them. So I'm a little concerned that when we request items to go on here, we don't actually get something we can work with. And there is an updated table on this, but I would have thought we would need somebody who can actually answer the questions about how we can get an Article before going, what sort of things are appropriate. And yeah, so that's the introduction.
Councillor Palmer. All right, sorry.
I agree. I don't know what it is. It's just, it's here and anything but.
I believe Councillor Baldock asked for it to be put on the agenda. Maybe it needs to be revisited.
The best thing for it is that as a committee, like I've said, it's not something that wants to be looked at. We need the details, but as a committee, we can refer them to whatever relevant committee needs to go to. And I think this is the sort of thing that we obviously got something in the area we want to be looked at, and we should be referring it back to committee. The problem with this one is it needs to go to planning and transportation, which isn't a committee in its own right. So I think we have to do it to policy and resource, which would then give it to planning and transportation. But it's that sort of thing that you need more detail on it, but to go for the relevant committee first and then come back once you've got the detail and how it can be taken forward for each area.
That seems to make sense.
I got an article before on a piece of land in Huntley. So obviously this talks about households or whatever. And all I did, I spoke to a planning officer. And then he started the ball rolling. It had to go to the planning committee, who sanctioned them and had to approve it or not approve it as the complaint is. So I don't know if that's still the procedure, but I think the procedure is to speak to a planning officer with an area that, or what you want. And I found they gave me the advice and basically drove it forward from there.
That's useful. Monique.
Yeah, Planning and Resources Committee. What's that?
No, I didn't say planning.
I'm asking the question because it's on here.
Right.
It says officer to report to Planning and Resources
I
Committee.
think that's a typo. Should that be policy and resources?
No, I was planning and transportation. Where does it say?
Yeah, but that's not committee.
Right.
There's planning and transportation policy working group, and then report to town
In that
policy and
report.
resource.
I think it should be policy and resources. Yeah.
Okay, so I think certainly I think within my ward that there are issues where we have a conservation area. However, the protection under a conservation area isn't what people think it is. So, for example, windows is a good one. People think, oh, well, you can't do this, and it'll be, or we can change this and everyone starts doing their own little bit. And what happens is the whole conservation area, the picture and image that people have of a certain area starts getting fractured and diluted with someone having brown windows, someone having white windows. It doesn't fit with the overall vision of what that area is. What Article 4 would certainly hold it to that and the period of the property. So the windows have to be in the style appropriate to that property, etc. So I think they're a really useful tool. I certainly can think of quite a few instances where it would really be useful to have these to preserve that character and nature of an area, but in a very specific way, because that conservation protection is not as specific and detailed as we'd like it to be. And also they don't have to apply to conservation areas. And we've got the examples in Faversham where they're not conservation areas. But yeah, I agree. This needs to, I think, probably might want to come in. We need to know how we can implement these in our area. And obviously there's probably a time and a cost implication to those. So we can't have hundreds of them, but they are a useful tool that we can start getting those implemented, piecemeal or whatever across the way. But I think it does need a proper report with all the background to it.
Councillor Baldock.
Yeah, it does need to come back with proper guidance, so that when the parishes might choose to pay for the process in their area if they want to put things forward, but we need guidelines as to what is involved, what would be suitable, not just this. This is without an officer here. This is quite disappointing. It needs to come back next time.
So are you saying, Mike, that we should on refer this to policies and resources, and then at some point it needs to come back to our committee?
No, I mean, I don't know why it would need to go to policy and resources. It's the process. It is something that exists. What we need to do is understand what it is, what's required, and how we can take it, or how we as individual councillors or an area committee or as parishes can take it forward in the future. There'll be another heritage strategy review in a couple of years. We may want to work with a parish council who wants to do it, but we don't know until we've got a proper report. This is an important tool in our toolbox, and we need to know how to use it to protect certain areas.
James?
I agree with that. I mean, I was just going to sort of look about, take it to policy and resource, but if it is just an information thing that we need to know how to do these, then I agree that comes back. But I think maybe it's the information that's gone to whoever's done this report of what we actually want. I think we need to be clear of exactly what we want and what we're trying to achieve to actually get what's right coming back to us.
And if it's an area committee, if that's the appropriate venue, it needs to be across all of the area committees, not just ours.
Remembering we can't make any decisions, so it just needs to be information that's good. But what we have got here is different to what Mike has said, because Mike mentioned about highway, for instance, around the church and putting an Article 4 there to start controlling it. But this document says implementing households Article 4 directions in recently adopted conservation areas. But it doesn't say about areas that haven't got conservation areas. So that's a missed thing. So that's why I think the information of what we exactly want to the officer's got the right information to come back.
Yeah, yes. And we need to let the officer know exactly what we, so, and if there's a report, then ideally an officer here to answer questions, yes?
I did originally invite the conservation and design officer to come along. She wasn't available, unfortunately, and she provided this briefing note instead, but I can go back to her and say that you'd like a fuller report and attendance at a future meeting, but thank you.
So just point out, is actually, I think you're looking at online, it might be the additional one that has the Article 4 in areas without conservation area, or a briefing extended, so it might be the printed out version.
There's a printed out one.
Vivian, sorry.
Yes, as I understood it from coming to various meetings before, I thought we were also looking at how Article 4 could be used in non-conservation areas, so in particular, what happened to the idea, but we were wondering if we changed that.
The new sheet, there's a sheet up there that updates what's in your pack. So grab it when you go.
Understanding all about Article 4, what is it, what does it do, etc.
Sorry.
Useful.
Can we make sure that updated one's posted online?
I can make sure it's included when I do the minutes.
Thank you, Ross.
Oh, yeah, this is the other one, this is the next.
At the bottom.
Yeah.
So are we all in agreement then that, yes, it comes back, there's no point us discussing anymore because we need someone to be able to answer questions, okay?
It might be easier.
Go on.
What people want to know is, A, particularly parish council, what is an article?
Yeah.
They need to know how they go about instigating an article 4 either on a property or an area. What is the process? Because I've only ever done one, and that was following to speaking to a planning, someone at the planning team, and they took it forward from there.
And how useful is it? And in what, and in what areas might it be useful? I mean, is it around, if they're going to build a new,
That was being used for food camp, food fairs and open air cinemas. And they're allowed 28 days a year. But it was in such an inappropriate area to cause severe problems with traffic. So they put the Article 4 on the map. But as I recall, you have to go to the planning committee with a report, and it was up to the planning committee to approve it.
or not, yeah. Right.
Fair enough, I do remember it
So, like,
now. The cinema. Yeah.
because it's a planning matter as opposed to anything else.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. That's it.
Yeah.
Done this for Article 4.
Right, so you've got that, Janet, haven't you? Right. Are there any, do members have any issues you'd like to raise on behalf of local residents and communities? Oh, and parish councils? No? Okay. I'm not aware of any matters to be referred to service community chairs for consideration.
I don't think anything has come up that
No.
would be.
Okay. So the next area committee takes place on the 15th of February next year, venue to be confirmed. I will close the meeting.
Okay.
Sorry. Which can?
And this meeting better than others. And
Thank you. Why?
because I think the way we're sitting in this room.
Yeah.
Rather than in a hall being all spread out and we're actually sitting around talking and discussing things rather than just being spread out with things.
That's really good. I mean, Janet and I talked about it and she was more confident with the Wi-Fi because it was not hers personally, but the in-house Wi-Fi.
Yes, I mean, there's a lot of advantages to this particular venue. In the villages, there are very few with Wi-Fi. I've just heard today that Newington now has Wi-Fi. And obviously the rooms you can't always choose. They may not have all the tables. It may not always be possible to set up in this way, but you know, we can do our best. And the acoustics are better. I mean, if you've got a preference that I book it here, that's entirely up to you.
I think it's better in the villages because you're trying to get people in the villages to attend. And, you know, but if you keep, I appreciate there's no attendance, but if it's possible, I think we should try to have it.
I mean, I am at the moment sort of searching at one of the, I was going to ask Councillor Bonny, Robinson.
Yeah, no. Oh, yeah. No, we've got Wi-Fi in Robinson Village Hall. Still in there
You
now.
have to wind the handle.
No. Proper Wi-Fi for school use.
But the cricket, I think a good venue. I'm contacted them, they haven't responded, but.
I should declare an interest, but I wait on.
I looked on the date of the next meeting, it's always busy. Iwade Village Hall, I contacted them and they said no availability. The only one I've got left to try is Newington Village Hall.
Probably not.
I will try. I didn't think that they.
Do they have Wi-Fi? But yeah, I think Wi-Fi is because often we have Councillor Butlin, and she's not online today, but there are often regular people, so we do need the Wi-Fi for people who can't get here because there are no buses.
Okay.
But even if it's set up small enough rather than.
Yeah. Steve still seems a long way away. Okay, anything else? No, right. Meeting closes at 7 minutes to 9. Have a lovely Christmas, everyone.
Thank you.
Right, thanks.
Um,